Dear students, today we are going to start Chapter 13 of History, the Constitution, Government System and their social concerns. So this is our part 1. In this chapter, we are going to cover the following topics, which includes introduction, the structure of political institution in the Constitution, Union Legislature, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, Parliament's powers and functions, Union Executive, President and the Council of Ministers. Okay, let's begin with introduction. In the last chapter, we learnt about the Indian Constitution. We tried to build our understanding of the historical context in which it was drafted and the drafting process itself, the series of debates in the Constituent Assembly, and the values and the principles articulated in the preamble that formed the basis of the Constitution. In this chapter, we shall learn about the structure of political organizations, the opportunities the Constitution provides for social change, and the way in which the Constitution is evolving and developing. The first topic, the structure of political institution in the Constitution. Decentralization of power. When power is centralized, it is beyond the reach of the common people, as a result of which their needs and aspirations are not given priority. Democracy must be decentralized to become strong. The people should have the power to take decisions through the representatives they elect at the community, village, town, district and state levels. Gandhiji visualized more power being given to the village panchayats in his concept of Swarajya or self-rule. At the time of independence, India was visualized as a union or amalgamation of states. Hence, power was distributed at two levels, the union or central level and the state level. At both levels, the representatives elected by the people were given the right to take decisions. In 1992, the 73rd Amendment of the Constitution decentralized power to a third level, the village panchayats. Separation of powers. The state or government has three kinds of powers: to enact laws, implement them, and dispense justice according to the law. But concentrating all these three powers in a single body could lead to authoritarian rule. Hence, these powers should reside in separate and independent organizations. This is what separation of power means. As you learnt in the previous class, such separation was a major objective of most democratic revolutions. So, most modern governments have three arms or branches: the legislature, which enacts laws and formulate policies; the executives, which implements these laws; and the judiciary, which dispenses justice in accordance with these laws. The principle of separation of powers ensure that the three branches of government, legislature, executive and judiciary, are independent, have their specific responsibilities and don't interfere with or try to control each other. But this is not always possible in practice because their work depends on each other, so they have to cooperate and work together. That is why India adopted the principle of limited separation of powers. The next topic is Union Legislature, Parliament. Our Union Legislature is called the Parliament. It is composed of the President and the two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. A special feature of the Indian Constitution is that the Executive Council of Ministers is a part of the Parliament and is answerable to it. The Parliament represents the will and supremacy of the people. It is the foundation of the country's political system and the voice of the nation. The Parliament has representation from all the classes of society and all regions of the country. It also has a system of reservation to ensure representation of the scheduled castes and tribes. But the representation of women is much lower than what one should expect in a parliamentary democracy. This is a matter of national concern. That is why a bill to amend the constitution to reserve at least 33% of the seats in the parliament for women has been under consideration for several years. The representatives who are elected either directly or indirectly present the problems of the people in parliament where they are discussed. The parliament also discusses policy matters, law related proposals and cabinet proposals before approving them. In addition, it discusses the performance of the ministers who are expected to answer all queries posed to them. In this way, the parliament plays an important role, keeping a watch on the government and controlling any authoritarian tendencies that could lead to the concentration of power in the government. Let's know about Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. India has two legislative houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The Lok Sabha members are directly elected to the House by the people of India, whereas the Rajya Sabha members are elected by the members of the state legislatures. This is a two-house or bicameral system of legislature. There are many advantages of having two houses in parliament. For one, the parliament needs experts, especially subject experts and professionals who are accomplished in their field like scientists, legal experts, industrialists, writers, artists, etc. If it has to perform its function properly, it is not always possible for such experts to win an election to enter parliament. The state legislatures can choose such experts and send them to the Rajya Sabha. The parliament thus benefits from their expertise, and the second advantage is that any proposed law is debated twice before being enacted. If you recall the lawmaking process, you will remember that all laws are debated by both houses before they are approved. So, a law cannot be made in haste. This lengthy procedure helps to prevent a flawed law from being passed. Now, we will know about Parliament's power and functions. First, legislative function. The Parliament makes law for the entire country or for a part of the country. But in practice, the Council of Ministers and the bureaucracy, executive, performs the function of drafting the laws, so the Parliament's role is usually limited to approving a law even though it is the supreme body. Any important bill, proposed law, cannot be presented in the Parliament without getting the approval of the Cabinet. A private member can also propose a bill, but without the support of the government, it is unlikely that the bill will be passed. Second point, controlling the executive and making it answerable. The government is answerable to the Parliament. This essentially means that the Council of Ministers, who are also members of Parliament, is answerable to the Parliament. Any member of the parliament can ask the ministers questions relating to their ministry, and the ministers are obliged to give proper answer. If they give wrong answers, they can be removed from their posts. Third, financial parts. All governments levy and collect taxes to generate resources to cover their expenses. In a democracy, levying taxes and utilizing tax revenues are controlled by the parliament. Third, financial powers. All governments levy and collect taxes to generate resources to cover their expenses. In a democracy, levying taxes and utilizing tax revenues are controlled by the parliament. Let's know this in more detail. See, every year the finance minister presents a budget on behalf of the cabinet which gives details of the expenditure the government plans to incur and its tax proposals to generate the required revenue. The Lok Sabha approves the income and expenditure proposals for the year. Only after the approval can the government levy taxes or spend state funds. The parliament thus has the right to provide or stop funds for the government's budgeted expenditure. The government also has to account for its expenditure in the parliament. Fourth, forum for debate. The parliament is the highest forum for debate in the country. No one can curb this power for discussion. The members have the freedom to state their views on any subject without fear. Thus, the House can debate any topic that is presented to it. These discussions are not confidential or secret. The proceedings of the House are presented on TV and newspapers to inform the people. Fifth, amending the Constitution. The Parliament has the power to amend the Constitution. Both houses have equal constitutional powers. Each amendment has to be passed by a two-thirds majority of each house before being sent to the President for approval. Sixth, electoral functions. The Parliament performs some electoral functions such as participating in the election of the President and electing the Vice President. Seventh, judicial functions. One of the Parliament's judicial function is to debate any proposal to remove the President, Vice President, or any High Court or Supreme Court judge from their post. Students, now see this picture. You can understand the powers and the functions of the Parliament through this flowchart. Our next topic is Union Executive, President and Council of Ministers, the branch of government that implements the policies and laws approved by the Legislature and performs administrative functions is called the executive. As we saw earlier, the executive also plays an important role in policy formulation and lawmaking. We shall now study the role of the President, Council of Ministers, and Prime Minister in the executive. The executive powers conferred by the Constitution officially rest with the President, who is thus the head of the three military forces, Army, Navy, and Air Force, the first citizen, and the constitutional head. All constitutional appointments are done by the President. We saw earlier that the President also convenes the sessions of Parliament. In addition, the President declares war or emergency. The President exercises these powers through the Council of Ministers under the leadership of the Prime Minister. Students, now see this picture. 13.4. This is the picture of Rashtrapati Bhavan. Now see this chart, the power of president. Here various powers of the president like executive, military, judicial, legislative, financial and emergency. These all are the powers which the president has. Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. The President is supported and advised by the Council of Ministers, which is headed by the Prime Minister. The President appoints the leader who has the majority in the Lok Sabha as the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister chooses the Council of Ministers. In practice, however, the Prime Minister has supreme authority. As we read earlier, the President can exercise most of his or her powers only on the recommendations of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. It is unconstitutional for the President to act without the advice of the Council of the Ministers. A majority in the Lok Sabha is needed to appoint a Prime Minister and form a government. A majority means having the support of more than half of the total members of the Lok Sabha. The current Lok Sabha has 543 members and it is mandatory to have the support of at least 272 members to become the Prime Minister. Dear students, thank you for watching.